I had been renovating his quarters in the Brooklyn Temple. That was my job. And I did not go to the airport like everybody did, but I went to finish, because the mantle on the doorway between the hallway and his living room was not finished and he could have tripped over it, so I was desperately trying to get the stupid thing to fit, and it was just not fitting, and because it was an old marble construction, I was having a very hard time doing this, and I had to cut the door to make the thing fit in there. So when I was so absorbed in this, I was just laying across it, trying to figure out how to get the thing in, and all of a sudden Prabhupada stepped over my head, and I didn't even know he had walked in, because it was completely silent, and he just stepped right over me. And as he stepped over me, I thought, oh my God, is it okay that I'm here? And he turned around and said, yes. So then I was like, woo, I didn't say that. So then I completed it very rapidly, and that was the first.
So one day, Srila Prabhupada told us, he warned us, he was so protective for us, you know, and protective for what he was doing, building a temple, so we don't get cheated. So Prabhupada said, you have to understand that they will never see that you have tilak on your forehead. They will only see, and he went like this, dollars. He went tilak, dollars. So I understood that he wants us not to be naive, to be grounded, and to be very practical.
When I first went to Vrindavan, it was, I think, October 1972. And what immediately struck me was how incredibly dirty everything was. I had just come from Bombay, where things were much better, relatively speaking, and Vrindavan was in very decrepit condition, open sewage, things were in disarray, there was litter in places, and I was quite discouraged by that. In fact, one of the first things I did was actually start sweeping the whole Radha Damodar temple. And so then Prabhupada, he said when we went on a walk, when I mentioned this, that it was very, very dirty, he said that because of the neglect that whatever the city commission was at that time, those responsible for it would have to take Bertha's hogs and dogs to learn their lesson and atone for not taking care of Vrindavan.
Then about the boys, Srila Prabhupada said that mother should feed as long as she can boys. Then he gave example that Krishna was being fed by his mother up to 7 years old. He said if boys take milk from the breast of his mother a long time, then he will not be so attracted to the breast of women later. And Prabhupada said also, girls should never be married if she's repulsed or not at all attracted to the husband. This is a big crime, he said.
One of the many cooking difficulties I had this one was rather unique in its own way, was I had to constantly cook in a totally new environment each place we went to. Now, in the Paris temple in that day, in that time, I think it was on Rue de Sceaux, it was very small. Not small in a small, it was a couple of story building, but it was very skinny. Because it was on a corner. So the kitchen itself was very skinny. And there was counters on both sides with everything was on a very skinny thing. So barely you had enough room for two people to fit in there, which is very French, especially in those days before they really developed the country. So I had to go in there, and I needed help. I didn't know where anything was. I needed these things I bought. Somebody had to go speak French or go buy things and everything. So this girl was designated as the one to help me. So while I was trying to get things together in the kitchen, and I didn't want to be distracted in any way, because it's really hard. You have a very short period of time during the massage to get the lunch together. The lunch has to be exactly warm at exactly the moment when he finishes his shower, sits down and puts his tilak on, and then the plate hits. So this is like clockwork. You got to get it, you got to time it, you got to know exactly what's happening. So there was this girl who, I don't know, I'm not going to say anything bad about this girl. I don't remember who she was, and if she ever hears this, I'm sorry. But the point being that, well, she was in the same kitchen as me for some reason all the time, for some deity offering, I don't know what. So constantly I was getting rubbed into, across the back or wherever, and it really bothered me. And I was trying to be a good brahmachari. I was trying to be, I was cooking for Prabhupada. I didn't want this kind of thought in my head at all. And so this happened way too many times. Whatever, I don't remember how many times it was way too many times. I said, that's it. So I stomp out of the kitchen, and I stomp into Prabhupada's room where he's getting a massage. I said, Prabhupada, I cannot cook in this place. I said, this girl in the kitchen, she's just in the way all the time, constantly distracting me, completely pushing up against me. I said, I cannot, I'm a brahmachari, I can't do this anymore. So then he says, so I shall not eat. I was trying to make an excuse. Well, that's not exactly what I meant. I meant maybe some lady can cook or she could cook. He says, no, I shall not eat. You are my cook. I want you to cook. I shall not eat. And then I felt terrible. And then he said, there are girls everywhere, women everywhere in the world. If you avoid them like this all the time, you will have nowhere to go. What will you do? So I understood that lesson very well. It was a very important lesson, that sometimes you have to do what's important, and you just have to bite the bullet, so to speak, or do whatever's required to get it done. So I went in there and I begged her to just please not do that, and otherwise we'll be okay. And I just concentrated on it and brought it in. And I don't remember what he said afterwards, but I think he was smiling somehow because he was eating.
So we are in Vrindavan, and we get the marble for Vrindavan in Makrana, in Jaipur. Very far place, difficult to reach, very hot. So impossible to travel with a prashadam because it's a long way. So we ask Srila Prabhupada that when we travel for our service like this, what we do, is it possible to go to the restaurant? So Srila Prabhupada gave instruction. He said, yes, you can go. You go quickly, you order quickly, you eat quickly, you pay quickly, and you leave quickly. in that way you can eat when you are traveling and go to the restaurant. So I understood that Prabhupada is of course very practical.
I had to cook in some really horrible situations. I mean, places where there was no kitchen, or places where there was just a shelf and you had a hot plate, you know, electric hot plate, and that was the kitchen, with a bowl of water. Mauritius was one of those places where, and the flour that was given to me was, you could have just made sawdust and had the same effect with this. It was so bad. In Mauritius, the food at that time was so awful. And the flour they gave me to make chapatis was so terrible. But this had been going on all through Africa. All over Africa, Nairobi, and well, we hadn't gotten down to South Africa yet. So it was a serious problem, all of these places. It was also a problem in India before. Some of the kitchens were terrible, and you know, we weren't staying in temples all the time. So I had to make chapatis. Now, I'm not Srila Kirti. Srila Kirti is the chapati acharya. Anything chapati he makes, it's perfect. Me, I struggled to make chapatis. Sometimes I could make them not bad. If it was a good flour, if it was a gas stove, and if it was, all the conditions were what they usually are in any temple in the world, I can make a chapati. Not as good as him, but I still could make a chapati. It was acceptable. Now we're in these conditions, which are in battlefield conditions, basically speaking. So Mauritius, the worst possible thing, because we're in some outpost house in the middle of nowhere, and it's just a hot plate. Just one hot plate. That's not even so hot. Flour, that's so bad. You can't do anything with it. And I'm struggling just to make a dough. I'm struggling to make this chapati. And it came out to be like I'm giving Prabhupada pieces of cardboard. Literally. Didn't blow up nothing. It was just cardboard. And so this continued as we went through these horrible places. I couldn't get good flour. I couldn't get a stove. I couldn't get anything. So he was getting very upset, because the Srila Kirti said just this afternoon, he said, you know, for Prabhupada, food meant a good chapati. If you could do a good chapati, everything else was forgiven. If you couldn't do a good... Anyway, so I couldn't get chapatis together. So we finally make it back to Bombay. And I was struggling in Bombay because the stove was, there was no gas pressure. There was no real kitchen there. It was, again, horrible. So I made better chapatis, because the dough was, the flour was good. I made better chapatis, but they weren't really up to the standard. So then Prabhupada looked at them and he said, but what he had been saying all along, each time, was big brain can't even make a chapati. This was his standard statement. So I bring the chapatis in Bombay. Big brain can't even make a chapati. So then I said, Prabhupada, nobody can make a chapati on these stoves. I was talking about the ones all over. I said, nobody. I don't care who they are. I didn't say Srila Kirti, because maybe he could. I don't know. I don't care who they are. Nobody can make chapati on these stoves. He said, nobody? He's sitting at his table. Nobody? I said, nobody. He said, nobody? Then he pushes his hands up, gets up off the table, walks into the kitchen. And I'm like, whoa. Then he says, where's the dough? And I'm sitting behind him. We're both on the floor. I'm behind him. He's sitting there in front of the stove. And he's going like this, looking at me. Then He was very good at rolling chapatis. Perfect. Looks at me. Puts it on the drying thing there that you make chapati with. He's looking at me. Takes it off. Puts it on the stove. It doesn't blow up. I smirked. I'm this far away from him, right? So he heard me smirk. I don't know if I can duplicate it exactly, but it was something like, So then he turns around and looks at me, gets the dough, does it even faster, chucks it on the plate, throws it on the grill. It blows up. He picks it up with the tongs and throws it at my nose. And it bounces off my nose. And he stands up triumphant and walks out of the kitchen. And I'm sitting there hysterically laughing. It was the greatest thing that ever happened. It was just spectacular. Get a chapati bouncing off your nose.
So one time in Vrindavan was the time of the mosquitoes. So we all got alert, and we all was told to be very careful, the servants in Prabhupada's quarter, to close perfectly the doors, so we don't want mosquitoes attack Srila Prabhupada. So one time, I will be so careful. So one time, I am coming. So for those who know Srila Prabhupada quarters, many of you, I am coming from his little kitchen by the garden and enter. So on the left there is Srila Prabhupada room, and on the right and straight you can go in his darshan room. So I am coming. So I am a little after Prabhupada sleeping room, and there come out on my right Kishori. So Kishori blocked me to go, and he started to scream at me. What are you doing? You never close Prabhupada's door. You want Prabhupada to be attacked by the mosquitoes like this. And I was so careful to close the door. So I'm like this, and you go like this, and you are stupid, and scream and scream. So I'm like this. I'm trying to tell him, yes, I promise you, I did close the door. Okay. So, suddenly, I feel such a strong, I don't know how to say English, poignet, hand, such a strong like this, not on my sari, on my hip. One hand is catching my hip, but so strong, and pull me like this. And who is that? Srila Prabhupada. And he come in front of me like this. He put me behind him, and he went to Kishori. So what now? Why are you speaking to her like this? What is this? You should not speak like this to her. And Srila Prabhupada started to defend me like this. And he got so angry. So, the first thing is that Prabhupada touched me. And he defended me. And he always defend the poor, the one who are, women are nothing much. like that. Oh, that was the unbelievable day, what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada had such a strong strength. You cannot imagine. Such strength. Hare Krishna.
Jai Anilo Premadana Karuna Prachu